So welcome to defn, guys. It's I think episode 92 something, I think. But this time it's what do you call this? They're like a double bill? No, that's double guest. Double the fun.
Double trouble.
Yeah. So 4 microphones. So we were able to sort all the technology crap already. Maybe a quick introduction round so people will know who you are and where you're from. And I mean, probably they know from the title of the podcast, but yeah, that's like spoiler alert.
Well, I'd like to know for a start, So,
Who are you? Why are you in this podcast? Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Magnar?
Yeah, hello. My name is Magnar Sveen, and if you have heard my voice before, it's probably on Emacs Rocks or Parents of the Dead. And I'm here probably because someone asked me to join. I've been programming Clojure since 2013 and started using Emacs the 2 years before that. Thanks to Christian.
Is Emacs rocks, by the way, just quick, is that like the rocks from which Emacs is made out of? What is this Emacs rocks?
It's the rocks that is followed by an exclamation mark.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll come to it later. Okay.
Emacs rocks are the ones that we use as weapons towards people who don't use Emacs. So just keep throwing at them like, use Emacs.
It's working for you. Okay. Sorry, Christian.
Yeah, so my name is Christian Johansen, and I don't know if people probably don't know my voice, but I do the Parents of the Dead screencast with Magnar, and I've done some open source stuff with Clojure, and I've been working with Clojure now for, I don't know, I started at the same time as Magnar, but he was a bit more fortunate than me, so I had to do some more years of JavaScript. So I don't know, like 7 years or something full time now. Yeah, and I've been using Emacs since university, and I forced it on Magnar the first time we worked together.
Oh,
yeah, that was nice.
This I didn't know.
I was using TextMate at the time, and I really liked the extensibility of TextMate, which of course is majorly trumped by Emacs. But we sat down to pair program maybe the first or second day together at work. And I had TextMate up, and I think maybe Christian lasted half an hour before I said, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do this. let's get the Emacs going." And it didn't take very long before I started making the Emacs Rocks podcast.
You got the rocks out and started throwing them at you, and you.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
I think it's funny because like Magnar was using like what I would say is a pretty mainstream editor. Like you could use normal key bindings to get things done, and I just said like I don't want to do this. And then he had to learn this very strange monster of an editor. But
and I had hearts in my eyes the entire time.
Back in the day, was that when you were like sat next to each other? Did you do it remotely at that time?
No.
That was 2011, so it was into the office every day.
Right, yeah. Because I always think like pair programming, like obviously it started in person. So like when he was using like TextMate and you were using Emacs, I can sort of see when you're sharing a screen or something that it would bother you. Or is it because of what bothered you actually, other than the sort of like the feeling that somebody else might not be using Emacs? What was the problem?
Okay. So let me clear up one thing. So I did not have like a moral objection with him using his own tools. Okay. It was for when we were pair programming. No, it was for pair programming, right? So when I was to type on his computer, I had to type it into this shitty.
Right.
Oh, there is no moral judgment except that it's a shitty editor.
Okay. For my taste. Yeah. For my taste.
That's true.
So this is because you weren't using a shared drive with the computing stuff on it. It was just like just one.
No, like
just one computer actually, basically.
Pair programming.
Yeah.
As God intended. So one person on the shoulder, other person typing. And
no, I know, but in the remote setting, you don't do it like that anymore, do you? You tend to commit it and then do that.
No, we do. We still do that a
Oh, you
lot,
do it?
even remotely.
Screen, yeah.
Oh, you do it
Yeah,
with Tmux or something, I suppose.
No, we use. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to mention commercial
Of
products?
course, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
We use a app called Tuple app,
Oh,
and it works really well. So you have screen sharing, and then you can use the keyboard, even with like control sequences, and everything works.
no, nice.
So you have few tools, and it's not specific to any app. It's just in the operating system, and you can just use the keyboard on the other person's machine as if it were your own.
This feels like a
Nice.
terrible
So-
security breach to me, but okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I guess you would not invite people you don't trust on that tool.
Yeah, I've seen all the
It's not-
movies,
it's-
so
it's
you know
not
it's the
like-
people that you do trust that are the problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
All the wives getting killed by their husbands, not by strangers. You know, it's the same with keyboards. You know? I keep my enemies close. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, joking aside, but so so you were doing like sitting next to each other, and then you swapped computers. He just passed the computer to you, and you sort of essentially threw it in the bin, and you know, fished it out of the bin and
Installed
said,
Emacs.
install Emacs. God damn it. Yeah.
something like that. And then he took it and ran with it, to say it put it very lightly.
Okay. Well, that's very nice. It's very nice.
I must say, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Magnar. Is it G silent or is it?
I would say you have a very good pronunciation.
Okay, I'm not going to say it again. Then I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then, but I used to watch your Emacs Rocks, small episodes and like a super quick things. And there are so many ton of things that Emacs can do that I didn't know, and like especially the way that you do the multiple cursor stuff, and within seconds you show something super magical stuff. It's really, really amazing, and I was hoping it will keep continuing for years and years. But it's a really I think it's as you mentioned, like 10 years ago or 7 years ago or something.
Yeah, it's
And-
crazy. It's 11 years since I started, and
Ah.
the thing that happened is quite simple. I got used to it. You know, in the beginning, everything was amazing.
Yeah.
The first episode is sort of like, wow, it's amazing how you can work with regions.
Yeah.
and those things don't feel amazing anymore.
Yeah.
But we have recently, sort of like the last month, done an Emacs reboot, and discovered some pretty cool things. So I'm hoping to do a couple Emacs Rocks episodes based on
Ooh,
that.
nice. But which came first? Is it Emacs or Clojure for you both?
We
But
started
for
working
Christian,
with-
probably it's sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. We started working together in JavaScript, and we were trying to do functional programming in JavaScript. For a long while, we created our own DOM rendering library to sort of do the render the entire DOM from data idea that was in React.
Yep.
Prior to React, we just didn't have the key there was the shadow DOM for the speed. So we were very primed for the ideas that Clojure came with, because we had frustratingly tried to work functional in JavaScript for a while. So I remember the tipping point for me was watching Simple Made Easy by, of course, our very own Rich Hickey. And I remember every couple of minutes watching that talk in my own living room, I had to press the pause button and walk around in my living room shouting, "Yes, exactly, that's it," and then continue watching.
You're like, this guy gets it.
Yeah, I mean, we were so primed for it. And another aspect was that because we'd also been like really infatuated with Emacs Lisp, so we'd really charmed by the whole Lisp thing. So we'd kind of started working on the functional programming side, and we'd started working on the Lisp, which interestingly, like Emacs Lisp is as unfunctional as you can get it. But anyway, then comes this language that solved all our problems and combined those two things into one tool that would be best worked on in Emacs.
Mm.
It's just the perfect package.
So going back a little bit further, then, like, why did you kind of like want to do functional programming in JavaScript? Because obviously that's not the obvious thing to do in JavaScript. So where does that idea come from?
I think it started sort of with seeing how immensely how much failure was to be found in using jQuery.
Right.
Because there you would sort of just manipulate the DOM piecemeal using invocations that were, we don't have to go into all that, but it was a mess, and it was a buggy mess, and it was, we were trying to find solutions to that, basically.
So where did you come across like that idea? Was that Rich, or was that before Rich that you kind of like hit upon this Damaskian kind of concept that functional programming could help you out there?
I think it was a little bit before.
Yeah.
I don't remember how we fell into it, but I do remember I gave a talk, which I remember well, which was called "Step Away from the For Loop." And the main idea in that talk was that I discovered like map filter, and I kind of discovered that this thing that we're using all the time, this loop, is being used for very different kinds of tasks. And using these functions, you can separate those kinds of tasks, and then you can puzzle them back together, and this will give you more composable code or whatever. You could like separate the things instead of doing filter and map at the same time in a for loop. Make one filtering function and one mapping function. Yeah. I remember that very vividly, but I don't remember how we came upon it.
I think I maybe know where we first stumbled upon it, and I think separately, but probably from the same source, and that was when we started using Ruby.
Yeah.
I mean, when you mentioned TextMate, I was kind of thinking you must be doing Ruby, because that seems to be the editor for Ruby shit back in the day.
Yeah,
for everything. So,
and the only reason I wasn't using TextMate is I didn't use a Mac at the time. I was using Linux.
Right. Yeah.
So I just kept on to Emacs, which I learned in university. But we both came from Ruby in some way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, TextMate was. I mean, of course, I mean, I use Emacs, but it was a very high quality editor, and the way it was built, and there is a reason why it took over Mac editing pretty much, right? I mean, there is a super native and behaves like a Mac application, and then has amazing text rendering stuff and everything, and fast. Anyway, but it's an open source thing right now, so maybe people still hack on that stuff. I don't know.
I think like also many Magnar created a whole lot of packages when he was picking up Emacs, and a lot of them were inspired by things in TextMate.
Oh, yeah.
I think, isn't that right?
Yes, multiple cursors, which I created for Emacs, is inspired by TextMate, and my other most popular user-facing package is Expand Region, and that was inspired by IntelliJ.
Okay, cool.
Pour one out.
Hey, but that's the beauty of it, right? You can build these things without someone else, building this stuff for you inside their proprietary editor, or you need to wait for this thing. You can just immediately hack it and then put it into that one.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk more about Emacs. Pretty much we'll only talk about Emacs today anyway. But just as a little bit of a digression into
a tiny
into
digression.
Other things. Tiny digression into some other world. So you mentioned you started with JavaScript, right? But
Ruby.
Ruby, but then doing JavaScript and then moving into Clojure. But I didn't hear any JVM related stuff that you did, or what we're using for the server side or whatever, because Clojure, at least initially, maybe pre-2013, I would say, was predominantly JVM anyway, right? And then
I didn't have a lot of experience with the JVM at all. I mean, I learned Java in university. I worked with Android for a year or so. But that's about it. So I'm still learning about the JVM.
So we
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I actually made my own editor in Java.
Oh, wow.
This is like the opposite ends of the spectrum.
This is why we need the intervention, actually. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to create an editor for my text game, and the only programming language that I knew on the PC, because I had programmed mainly on the Amiga for 10 years, was Java. So I had to use that, and so I remember drawing my own cursor using the graphics 2D graphics
Whoa.
library Draw Rect.
Yeah.
So I created my own cursor and wrote my own font metrics and everything.
Nice.
Whoa.
So that was fun.
So you're much more closer to JVM Clojure than Christian was.
Possibly, but there was this was the time when it wasn't cool to do front end development.
Yeah.
It was the thing that people thought about when they thought about front end development was bad pop-ups and marquee text, and so since I always wanted to do, I just wanted to build shit,
Yep.
So I had to
Yep.
I actually also do the front end stuff. So when I came into like a workplace, I was pretty much the only person there that wanted to touch HTML and CSS, and I sort of became an expert in Internet Explorer 6 at some point. So no one wants to be the expert on Internet Explorer 6, but it was just, you had to do that stuff.
It's like being the printer guy or something, It's like
yeah, exactly.
I think actually being the printer guy is much worse.
yeah, PostScript, true.
Printers are a work of the devil.
Yeah.
But I actually, this is just a funny anecdote. At some point, every consultant at the place that I was working at the time got thrown out.
Oh.
And 1 month later, I was the first consultant they brought back in because of my Internet Explorer 6 experience.
Hey, there you go, kids. If you want job guarantee,
learn COBOL.
Go and learn. Yes, like COBOL. No, learn Internet Explorer 6.
They had created an entirely new page that was going to be used by mainly every adult Norwegian, and watched in Internet Explorer 6. It was just a white blank page, and they had no idea what was going on. Yeah. Let's get Magnar back.
But I mean, so there's a lot of like useless stuff that I know about IE6, but at the same time, a lot of the things I learned at that time is still useful to me, right?
Yeah.
There hasn't been that many changes to the fundamentals. Like there's some new stuff you can pick up, and it seems to me it's a pretty big shift. Like people today don't necessarily start with the basics. They start with React or whatever, and then slowly work their way down to whatever is actually happening. Yeah. But we worked for many years just moving basics around. And that has been tremendously useful to me in all the years after.
I'm curious if people these days actually know that X in Ajax came from IE being XML HTTP request. That's the it's like the floppy disk icon or something. Like things have become forward, but at some point IE5 and IE6 were the Chromes of the day, and or Braves of the day, or whatever the new WebKit of the day. I mean, they really pushed shit forward with IE. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have. I mean, we might have better than what they had, but the plugin mechanisms and all that crap. I think there was a IE thing back then. Yeah, and then later maybe they decided to fuck everyone up. But.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with IE6 is that they declared that they won the browser wars and they stopped working on it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
like for close to 10 years or something.
Yeah,
because they had whatever 95% market share or something. They didn't need to work on it.
Yeah.
The complacency.
Yeah.
But so what was the first? I'm not sure how much you can talk about your Clojure projects themselves, but it'd be nice to know the stack and where did you start and what kind of Clojure projects that you initially you worked on, and then you thought, well, this is great and this is shit, and we should go back to, writing JavaScript? Was there a moment, or?
At the moment where this is shit has not occurred yet.
Great.
That's right. The very first project that I used Clojure for was my text game, because almost all the technologies that I've been using I tried it first there, which is a fun way to experiment with stuff. But yeah, I've been working professionally with Clojure since 2013, and quite a lot of different customers, but all from a sort of corporate event planning to tech docs to mobile apps, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we could mention like the first project we did though, because that's quite fun. So we were hired to write technical documentation as why we were hired. So there's this
Okay.
Who did all this nightmare?
we went into this with a great plan, because this is like a payment and SSO provider in Norway, pretty big one, and they needed proper API docs, and they needed someone to work full-time writing them, and they pitched the project to us, and we said, yeah, sure. They wanted us to write it in Confluence. and so we said like, okay, so you want to hire us for 3 months to write documentation in Confluence? Fine, we'll do it. And then we whispered like, we're not going to do it in Confluence.
There was a small asterisk in your contract, and then that said, oh, not really.
No, so then what we did, so I remember the first demo we did for them was very cool, because we presented exactly what they had asked for. It's like, here's a bunch of documentation inside Confluence. But that had been produced by a Clojure program that exported everything and used the Confluence APIs to stuff the docs in there. So we wrote a system instead to build the documentation site as a standalone site, and then with the option of exporting everything into Confluence. And then we said something along the lines of like, so this is what we have. You can use this standalone site that we built for you. Yep. Or if you want the documentation to die, you can export it into Confluence.
The cool thing there was that we integrated it with the real API, so you could. Well, this is more normal these days, but you could watch example requests in many different languages and look at the example response and so on, and all those things were tested against the Sandbox API. So it was real results there and so on. That wouldn't be possible in Confluence, but we did export it to Confluence, so they always had an out.
The thing I found, by the way, I used to do some like programming with Atlassian tools, and I don't know if you found this, but their APIs were just constantly evolving, by which I mean breaking all the time. Every minor version, they would just like change some parameters or some API. Then they'd tell you like in the release notes at the bottom, like 40 pages down, oh yeah, this API changes. Meanwhile, your build breaks. It's like, what?
Yeah. We didn't actually work a lot with those APIs because they wanted to use the standalone tool that we built. So we built that just to have kind of done what we were told.
Right.
But I mean, because it wasn't originally like a programming project, which allowed us to just pick a tool that we wanted to use. And so we picked Clojure, and we did everything with Clojure.
That's a really perfect way of doing things, yeah.
And that site is still running today, I think.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. But I'm not sure if I'm remembering it correctly, but I thought Atlassian at some point was using Clojure script. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe for the editor or some shit.
They were definitely using Clojure on the back end because they've had various blogs from Clojure people and over the years, I think. I don't know if it's still the case, but
yeah, you never know. that they're on acquiring spree,
Yeah.
and then at this point they probably use every language on the planet.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they're so big that there's
Yeah,
probably some
exactly.
team using whatever tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a completely different story of sneaking Clojure in, because usually the way Clojure gets in is like, oh, they're using a Java shop, and then we're just putting a jar somewhere, so without people noticing that it's written in Clojure. But this seems to be a bit more ocean level type sneaking Clojure into the thing, into a documentation project.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Nice. But what was so you build this tool, and is this something that like a commercial product, or it's only for them to be used, or the documentation generating thingy?
No, it's built specifically for that
It's
project.
like a custom one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't remember. Did we use Stasis for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What's that?
Stasis is a library of tools for building static web pages that I created. I think that one maybe was my first Clojure. The very first thing I made with Clojure, even before my adventure game. When I think about it, I created Stasis, which was basically a ring middleware, so that you could work locally, sort of like just a normal web server, and an export function to print all the HTML files that you wanted. Okay. And I used that to create the website for the consultancy that I was working in at the time.
So just, I mean, and we can all knock the Confluent stuff, but they do have an editor. And again, you can knock that editor because it is terrible. But did you have an editor as well, or were you just like writing Markdown or ASCII doc or whatever, and then just like pushing it out to HTML or then into Confluent?
Yeah, Markdown to HTML, and then we built this. Well, yeah, Eden, yeah, and then just like a system that pulls together code examples,
right?
Yeah, but they were in source files because they could also be run as tests. Yeah, stuff like this. So we had a system that, like, when you deployed the site, it would actually check that all the code examples worked.
Okay, it's like a book publishing system, really. You know, all these people that are writing Clojure books should use your tools.
Yeah, it's too bad it's owned by a commercial company.
Well, they can always, rewrite it.
I mean, it wasn't that hard.
From memory.
Like but we wrote most of this stuff in 3 months.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
But is it Clojure JVM thing then? So Clojure then, not Clojure script. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, what about the game stuff that you built, Magnar? Is it?
I think that's a podcast on its own. But
that's gonna be next episode.
It's a Norwegian text adventure game that I have been writing and working on the last 25 years.
Whoa!
And it's the text, the amount of text in the game is 2 times the Harry Potter series.
Okay.
So it's about 2.4 million words.
Wow.
And it's the current incarnation. The first one was written on the Amiga, and I've written several engines for the game up through the years. But the current incarnation, and I hope the final is written with Clojure and ClojureScript and Datomic. So it's a very nice place to spend some free time and building new features.
That's a pretty, jump from Amiga to Datomic. There is a lot of history in this in between.
Yeah.
So,
how do you distribute it? How is so? The idea is that you have some package that you distribute and it all fires up locally, or is it a multiplayer game?
It's a web game.
It's a web game. Okay.
It's a web game. So people go to adventure.no, which is the URL, and then they play there. It's quite a weird thing, but it's a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, but it's a
It's a lot of fun to play.
Is it a single player game or a multiplayer game?
No, it's a
Yeah,
single play
maybe
game with
just give us
The
the
pitch. Yeah.
game trial.
Okay,
not trial. How do you call that? Like the game advertisement.
So once you go to the webpage and you press start game, you are presented with some text.
Yeah.
And then you read the text, and then you're presented with some alternatives.
Right.
And you choose an alternative, and that's basically how it goes. And there are several examples of this on the internet, but those examples have maybe 5 to 10 minutes gameplay.
Yeah.
And you can play this game for hundreds of hours.
Is it like Rick and Morty? Oh, now you're in a forest. Now you're at an airport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
your mom is there. Your mom is leaving the airport now.
It used to be like that when I started writing it as an 18-year-old or something like that. But no, it's now pretty much a silly fantasy game. Yeah.
And I would add that Magnar is severely underselling his game at this point, but
as Norwegians do.
Yeah, there's a lot of the overall form is like explained, but there's a lot of complexity in the implementation. Lots of layers, and you can build. You can become a good person or a bad person that will shape the story you see, and it's like
There are 5,000 commits of features in the engine.
Whoa! And where is I don't want to make you spoil the game for anybody by revealing about
how it ends,
all that stuff. And when we can just read the entire 2.5 million words here and then let people get it. But I'm curious, where is the data stored? So the whole thing is stored in Datomic, or is it why Datomic for this? Because it doesn't seem like you need Datomic type of database here.
It's a good question. First of all, since I wrote the game on the Amiga, it could easily have been lost, and luckily it didn't, because my first adventure that I wrote in the code with print lines and goto and the read string and and that game quickly turned impossible to expand. So the next thing I did, and this was when I created the engine, I started writing to files. So each page has text and alternatives, and that got a page number, and that page was then stored on disk as a text file. And this is the reason that I actually have the game today, because I could take those files and move it to the PC, and I could parse them with other languages, and so on and so on. So there are still text files, and I have, of course, an Emacs mode to edit them with IntelliSense sort of features and so on. That is connected on the Datomic running version, because text files must be read and parsed and so on. So all of the content in the game is also in Datomic, sort of like a quick lookup, so I can find IntelliSense information while writing and stuff like that. But the reason that I need Datomic, other than it's freaking cool, which I think maybe it started as, is that the main protagonist that you're playing has a superpower. And that superpower is time travel.
Yeah, right.
And I had implemented time travel in PHP and in Java. And that was horrible. That was a mess. I have 2 PHP implementations of my time travel, and I'm going to have to do this one because it's too cool. I had not been able to fully or correctly implement time travel in PHP. It was pretty good. It was 99% there, but there were some cases that I hadn't been able to handle properly. And that was explained in the game as time travel is magical. You can't explain it. So if something weird goes on, it's the magical nature of time travel.
That's one way to roll your bugs into features.
Yes, exactly.
This is part of the grand design.
Another way of looking at it is it's time you'll never get back.
That's true. But with Datomic, I can always know whatever state you were in at whatever point. So all the magical thinking around time travel disappeared with the Clojure version of the game.
So what you're saying is Clojure removed the magic from your game.
Oh, there's other magic,
Okay.
luckily, but not
I'm
the
sure.
not the flaky time travel
Yeah.
magic.
So there is more intentional magic now.
Yes.
Nice. But it must be
More
like
powerful magic.
Yeah. But it seems like I don't usually have people who have been working on the same project for 25 years. It's very rare these days. I mean, as you know, in your consulting world as well, like, people come and work on something, move on to the next one. But it is, if you look back, and if you look into the future using time travel techniques, would you think there is going to be another rewrite in a different language with whatever the, I wouldn't call it difficulties, but whatever the tiny kinks that you have in Clojure that needs to be fixed?
I think that's a very good question. And before I answer it, I just have to say one thing.
You started rewriting it in Rust? Okay, moving on.
And that is 25 years ago when I started writing this game, Emacs was already 25 years old.
Yeah, that's
Isn't that crazy?
That's mental. But that's the Anyway, come back to your stuff now.
So the question. I used to learn a new programming language every year because I had read the Pragmatic Programmer's book, and it told me to do that. And it stopped when I learned Clojure. I am no longer learning a programming language each year because I'm home. I am, and the last 10 years have told me that I have chosen right. There's so much cool stuff going on just in the Clojure and Clojure
community world,
ecosystem.
And I'm learning. So I'm just sort of pining for another Rich Hickey talk where he can blow my mind again. He's done that quite a few times, but I want more. But yeah, Clojure, especially with ClojureScript, especially with Datomic, it's such a beautiful language and such a beautiful environment and everything. So I do not think I will rewrite my game the next 25 years.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Christian.
No, I just want like one thing I've been thinking about, because I did the same, like was jumping technologies and whatever. But I think it's interesting now to have worked mostly on this language for 10 years. And the language hasn't changed a lot. Like it gained a few minor features, but it's roughly like more or less stayed the same. And this has allowed me to like hone my skills with it in a completely different way that I've never experienced in any other technology. Like I'm not spending time relearning how to route requests in the web framework or like not relearning things I already knew. Instead, I'm just like very slowly honing my coding skills. And the code that I write now is, I don't know if I would say very different, but it's different from 7 or 10 years ago. It's more refined in a way.
I worked on my 10-year-old Adventure Deluxe code today, Christian, and I can say for sure that we have come away. Because that code is still pretty good, but I would not in a million years write it like that today.
No, and it's been like or we've been working together now for many years, and it's like in the past few years we've been churning out a few smaller libraries for things that have kind of come to us after like dancing around for some time. And some of those are tools that I don't think we would have discovered in more of a like an ever-changing ecosystem. Because you need some time to like work on a stable set of tools to see some patterns emerge.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So can you give us some examples, or from your experience and from your OSS work, the things that we should know and then the listener should know as well?
Yeah, so like the overarching theme has been making shit data driven. Yeah, and really, because that's like Clojure did that already 10 years ago or whatever, but it took us working with it for some time to see like all the amazing places you can do more of that. So like we had, so for instance, we had hiccup for a long time, right? Because you can represent the DOM or the HTML template or whatever as data, which is cool. You can use walk to walk around it. You can use treeseek to find things in it. You can like, it's malleable, right? And then, so we did the same thing with on the UI. We originally used a library called Quiescent, which is like one of the many React wrappers. And then we wanted to get off React at some point because we weren't like in Quiescent. You don't have any component local state, so you're only using it as a rendering a library.
Okay.
And as React was changing, we had to keep fixing our wrapper to run after the API changes. And we got tired of that because we were not using any of those features that they were adding. So we decided to just drop it. So then we made our own. This is like a small library called DOM, which instead uses another JavaScript virtual DOM library. And when we did that, we found more places to use data. So we it got hiccup support, and then we found that like events that you trigger, or like event handlers functions, like those functions were a thorn because that was the only thing in our data structure that wasn't data, and then we found a way to express them as data as well. So we built that into the library. So the library now has like a global event handler. And then you can use data for, you can say on click and just a bunch of data. And then those data will be sent along with the event to your global event handler. And boom, everything is data. And then the app we were working on had multiple languages. We built an I18N library. Again, just use data. Because we had like this translate function, TR, that was like all over our code. Everywhere we wanted text, we called this function. And then we figured out we don't want to like have this dependency on this library everywhere. So how can we get rid of it? Well, we could put a placeholder here instead, like a vector with a keyword that says I18N.
Right.
And then we can translate the whole structure another place. More data. And these are like, it's just some examples, but like ideas that have taken some time to develop. Do
you just on a small point there, like a little nitty point, but are you starting to use these, or have you been using these like tag literal stuff? Like you mentioned I18N there, is it like a special keyword, or is it a hash I18N, or is it just like a call on I18N?
Yeah, we just used the namespace keyword, but actually the way we built the library, you choose the keyword.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, you just tell the library that here's the dictionary for this keyword, and then it finds things that matches.
So you've got data for the definitions as well.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Metadata on the data that you're defining. Yay!
Yeah, but I mean,
that's good. That's good. I get it. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
And let me do sort of one example. That's pretty cool. Because when you write hiccup, you have this beautiful data structure that you can walk, that you can treeseek, except for the functions, right? Because they're totally opaque. And even worse, every time you make a new function, it's different, right? It's a different object reference. So the DOM can, since it can know about the event handler, know what the event handler includes, since it's just data, it can even optimize a way updating that every time. But the coolest part is, since the function is now data, let's say I have a button that I press on and it alerts something. It's just a JS alert. And that text would be inside the function literal, right? So it's hidden inside the function literal. But now that it's data, you can use the I18N library to walk the entire structure, and including updating the language snippet that's inside the function. And this is something that you would, well, first of all, it's not even possible to do without everything being data.
Yeah.
But it's not even something that you would think about doing prior to working with this for a while. Sort of going back to Christian's point, that the calmness in the Clojure ecosystem lets you find new gems hidden there.
Yeah. It's not constantly changing and evolving, and new shit is coming that you need to adapt to. There is no stress of that chasing the next version of the language like Swift does usually.
Yeah.
Every fucking release. Yeah.
And another thing, like also related to this, is that while we've been working on these like Clojure and Clojure script and the tools, the tool set has been quite stable over the past 10 years. And then let's take a look at the other ecosystems. What are they doing? Like their tools, like in JavaScript, their tools change all the time.
Yeah.
So they must have much better capabilities than we do, right? No, they don't. It's just the same stuff over and over again. Very rarely do you get new actual capabilities.
Yeah.
If you take a look at like the JavaScript framework situation today, most of them are just talking about performance. That's like the main different ways to do things to get more performance. I can count on this one hand how many times I had to performance optimize anything the past 10 years on the front end.
Yeah.
If you have immutable data, you have good enough performance for almost anything. At least for the kinds of app stuff we've been working on.
Yeah, I mean, not every app needs like globally distributed CDN spewing in everywhere, and then I think 80-90% of the applications are with the computers that we have, with the browsers that we have, optimize the hell out of everything. It doesn't make much sense. Yeah, that's true.
And like we like to say also, because we work in Norway, right? Yeah. And in Norway, almost no one is web scale. At least if you're targeting the Norwegian market, it's not web scale, right?
Yeah, the entire population is less than like a medium-sized city in the US.
Yeah. But don't you have latency problems?
One
then?
server.
Like, people all the way there in the north, all the way here.
I mean, most people are used to browsing American servers, so I guess they're used to a little bit of latency.
Yeah, that's true. Nice. But when you started JavaScript, when you were doing these things, I remember having this because I used to do JavaScript back in the day as well. Kind of a little bit of front end. Probably you know better that there is this underscore and the backbone time, and there have been a couple of things that were kickstarting this whole functional / reactive / heavy front end thingies. But if you see current ecosystem in JavaScript, and pretty much everything has settled down to reframe, and how do you see that compared to relative to ClojureScript? Because there has been so many iterations in JavaScript, and then ClojureScript, for me, it feels like we are kind of settled on React, and that's pretty much it. And
so this is
time for a rant.
This entire podcast is ranting.
Yeah, but a small rant incoming. So,
yes.
All right.
I'm actually a little bit disappointed with the ClojureScript community in this sense. Not in terms of I don't want to point fingers at anyone, but I think it's a little bit of a shame that we've just landed on being a Lisp for the JavaScript ecosystem, as opposed to building a better alternative, which I think we could have done and can still do, I guess. Like we are building our stuff, but nobody's listening to us.
not this podcast, but
yeah, but I mean, like, so because like the whole front end ecosystem is pretty much just a front to whatever's going on in the JavaScript world. And I don't mean to say that we should have gone the route that Elm took, that like you have to have everything needs to be built into the language or you can't use it.
Yeah.
That's not what I want, but it would have been nice. Like at this point, I would have thought that we had a native ClojureScript response to React, for instance.
Yeah.
That did not include lots of mutable state everywhere. Like, have you seen even modern Clojure script front ends have like atoms everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's like, we have better tools than that. We don't have to do that shit. So why?
Yeah.
That's, I think, is a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Clojure is a lot more than a Lisp. And the Clojure script, at least my impression, is that people are mainly using it as a Lisp on top of the JavaScript ecosystem. And I don't think they're getting all of the happiness out of that they think they are. Because the ideas in Clojure are radically different. And I think you can take those ideas, and I feel like we have done that, into the Clojure script world as well. And the only argument against it that I've ever heard is that it won't perform, but it has performed, and it continues to perform. So it's really, I would really hope that people also working on the front end in Clojure script will start seeing sort of the immutable data, the pure functions, that way of working with code is also the forward in front end development.
Maybe you will get an opportunity for this, because I don't know about you, but I perceive that reframe. God damn it, that React is kind of, I wouldn't say jumping the shark, but feels a little bit like that. It feels like there's a sort of bloat coming into it. There's a sort of there's the kitchen sink is coming in now. It started off as very much like a view over the function, over a DOM, and now it's getting all kinds of stuff. And you see other projects like Vue and Next and stuff like this, and they're trying to focus on performance, but they're also trying to focus on feedback loops and stuff like this. They're trying to differentiate themselves from React. They essentially say, okay, yeah, we get it. We get you to the immutable DOM, but now they're saying actually it's immutable DOM. This shadow DOM doesn't matter anymore. Some of them are not even using that. So they're saying actually we can do it fast enough without this shadow DOM, which is what I think you started with. So I think I would say that maybe the JavaScript world is changing a little bit to give opportunities for that kind of thinking, because it feels like they're doing that thinking as well, that they see but they're going in the wrong way, in my opinion. They're going like but anyway.
And I was going to say, like, so they're making the change, taking the entirely wrong direction, because I'll
stop my rant. I'll stop my rant and let you have yours, please. I'm just teeing you up here. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't mean to be a nitpicky, but it's the virtual DOM. The shadow DOM is a browser feature.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the virtual DOM, but the virtual DOM is the good idea, because the virtual DOM allows you to have the programming model where every change leads to a full re-render, like the conceptual model. That's the good idea. And now they're ditching that idea for whatever performance, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, so you can have surgical updates because you have lots of mutable state combining the view with state, blah, blah, blah. That's terrible. Yeah. I don't want that. I'm done with that. I was done with that 10 years ago. And that's also what is my impression that you do in like tools like Reframe. Like you can put subscriptions anywhere, right? And then you have a more targeted update, which is more performant. But I think a lot of people use those tools and they don't really know whether or not they need that extra performance. And you're exchanging a worse programming model, in my opinion, for that performance.
Optimizing prematurely and then thinking you need that without actually measuring anything.
Yeah. And I mean, I just had there was recently a long discussion on this on the Clojure in Slack as well. And the fellow who started the discussion, it was a very interesting discussion, but he was under the impression that he needed to do this stuff in order for things to perform.
Yeah.
Because that's what things told him. And he had no reason to challenge that. He was like new to UI development, and all the signs posted to you need to optimize, else it will be slow.
Yeah.
But it's not true.
But don't you think that like every 10 years, everyone forgets everything? You know, and that's why that,
for sure.
And then we keep going.
no,
in
but that's why
cycles.
we don't forget things. That's
Yeah.
why I think to your point earlier on, you know, is that we can find the gems hidden on the floor because, like you say, there's nothing covering them, smearing them,
Yep.
kind of like
Yeah.
putting. It's like
Piles of
it's like
shit.
finding, like going to an old house and finding you've got like some linoleum from the 1970s. You pick it up and you realize you've got tiles from the 1920s. Absolutely fucking gorgeous, but some idiot, like, you know, sort of put some shit over them in the 1970s because they thought it was all hippy dippy. And then you get it back and you say, oh my God, this is absolutely gorgeous. This is beautiful. This is the good stuff. And I feel like we're putting lino on all of our kind of code every 10 years.
Yeah. And that's the same with like the HTMX stuff, right? That's that's how we
I'm
did.
curious about your opinion on that, and I was about to ask because that seems to be something that, I mean, not with Clojure, but other languages that I dabble with, that, you know, that feels to me kind of a lightweight shit than me making complex applications and for my limited one person work. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't used it. I haven't checked it out thoroughly, but it's definitely, I know what it is because it's what we did 15 years ago. And I would not be surprised if it becomes very popular because I think it's probably a better tool for many, many people than the hugely complicated single page applications that people are building now.
Yeah. I think that is the problem that I see, or not a problem, but kind of an attitude with every time I deal with the front end folks, you know, who are building this stuff, and they immediately start with, that gives me PTSD from all the Java EE shit that I made back in the day, knowing nothing better, obviously, before Spring told us everything is, you know, much better, and then Spring became bloated later, because every time I open this front end projects, you know, I get like, the fuck, there are so many redirections, so many classes, so many this, so many that, and why is this so complicated? And as you mentioned, maybe there is nobody who is telling them there is an easier way. Like, you don't need, for a fucking 20-page application which can render super fast when you click from page to page, you don't need to have this huge ass build process, huge ass package JSON.
I mean, like the thing that we're working on at work now, that's a static HTML page. That's it. Those are fast. They're accessible. They're easy to make.
Yeah.
Like, what's not to like?
But I think what's not to like is the fact that it's not an application. You know, putting documentation on the internet should be simple, like you say, and that's fine. But don't you think we should have applications? Like, and we should have good support for those. And that seems to me like where we're going wrong, because this idea of a document thing being an application thing seems to have been the problem. And now we're getting like back to everyone saying, oh, we'll just make documents. It's like, oh, okay, fine. But what about the applications? You know, don't we need that as well?
Yeah, we need, but I think we need dramatically fewer applications than we have today.
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
I think looking at everything like a React application is the fucking problem. That's what I feel like, you know. Not every application need to have like 20 different toast notifications and shit and popovers and this crap and that. No, it's okay because I can click and then go to the next page, and there is information density, and it's okay for a, I don't know, imperceptible delay if I click a button and then it's just going to, you know, render a table again. That's fucking okay.
Yeah, it's not. It's like most of the time those navigations will even be faster than.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's Anyway, but that's
I don't know. I mean, for me,
now it's my turn to rant, I guess. But
go on. Then.
I'll stop. But I wanted to go, you know, in a bit different direction in the discussion, like, because what more and more I see when I'm talking to the startups or the new applications, I see JavaScript being converted to TypeScript, and then also the backend written in TypeScript these days. I mean, if you see most of the new in the last 5 years or so, when I try to see some open source software that is, you know, whatever, web hostable, suddenly even the backend is now TypeScript, not just the front endy stuff. And what is your view on, in general, TypeScript? I mean, I guess type's probably not something that you would say types are better being in a Clojure community, but how do you feel that? How do you feel about TypeScript compilation and the guarantees that you get from this, and also going into the backend?
Yeah. I feel like the safety net that types give me is not a safety net that is very useful.
Mm.
It will sometimes catch mistakes.
Yeah.
But the main reason I hear that people really like types is that it enables them to do massive refactorings using their IDE.
Yep.
And I think the massive refactorings are caused by the type systems. Because when I write Clojure code, I very rarely have massive refactorings. Very, very rarely. And I don't think that's because I can't do them because I don't have types, because I don't need to do them. I'm working with data, I'm working with pure functions, and there's just not big changes needed.
Also, there are not enough big, tightly interwoven structures that would cause you to make a huge refactoring.
Exactly that.
But do you use anything for the because one of the other things that types bring in is the if I can call it validation, like making sure that the data that you're dealing with conforms to some sort of a structure. But do you use any tools for that, like specs or Mali or?
Let me start by saying that luckily nobody who's using a type language has ever had a runtime exception. But because that's not possible, right? Okay, moving on. I don't use spec or Mali or anything that inside my application, but I have been known to use it on the edges, because integrations are difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of thinking that inside my program, if there are some extra keys there, I don't care. And I do write lots of tests. So I sort of feel like the tests are the place where I go to get to cache regressions and so on, including some integration tests, at least the happy days tests that I call them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's sort of I feel like the way I work with code is a lot different in Clojure, because you have the REPL there, and you have the sort of direct access to the raw power of the data flowing through the system. I guess if you've been working on with Clojure for a while, you sort of know this feeling. All the data is just right there. So if I wonder what's the signature of this this function, what sort of data is being sent to this function, I am usually able to answer that in a matter of seconds, because I can just turn on some scope capture stuff and just look at what's being sent.
But isn't this putting? I'm just being obviously devil's advocate, or just being for as a contrived example, right? And isn't this putting the the responsibility into the design, the responsibility into the programmer? Because for me, it feels like when I'm writing, in Anger, like playing with Haskell or playing with Rust, there is the compiler or the language is forcing me to do some things. And here you're free, but at the same time, we are saying make sure that your data is inspectable, make sure that your data you have pure functions. But the language is not forcing me, right? And a couple of Clojure projects that I've been involved with have been, to be honest, like very fucking painful, because the lack of the discipline. I'm not saying there are a lot of contextual issues, right? Maybe this is the first Clojure program that people are writing or whatever, but it seems like the guardrails that Richiki was talking about are not there in Clojure for me. Like, and on the other hand, I get all this freedom and the REPL and inspectability and all this raw power, as you mentioned. But at the same time, the other side of the a lot of power is a lot of responsibility, and it seems like the responsibility is on the design, is on the programmer themselves. Do you agree, or do you see?
I think you have a very good point, and I think this sort of boils down to how many developers are involved. Because if you have lots of developers, let's say, I know Nubank is doing pretty well, but I feel like if you have a small team, like now it's just me and Christian working together, then you can rely more on people doing shit the way they're supposed to do them. And less if you have like sort of 30 people running everywhere. But I would like to say just one thing about how Clojure doesn't force a structure upon you. I think it actually does. It's just on a different abstraction level. It forces immutable data upon you. And you can, and I have seen Clojure code bases where you have sort of worked around that using, and everything is sort of still a mess of objects and mutable data and But if you sort of work with the grains of the language, I think you sort of naturally fall into the imperative shell functional core pattern, which is a beautiful way to work, in my opinion.
But I think like a good test for a new code base is to check how many atoms do you find, and then you get 1 penalty point for each after the first.
Yes. From what I heard, Datomic has 1 atom, and if Datomic can do with 1 atom, you can as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair enough.
But I just want so I think like if you're getting acquainted with a new code base, I definitely see the benefit of some typing at like the
documentation, at least.
It's just to quickly orient your way around. But another thing, so this is another case of that I talked about before, things that we have refined over time, is I think we've gotten more precise with our naming. For instance, spend more time on naming now than I did some years ago, and being very careful not to use the same name for different things. I've done that a lot. At least to use the same name for 2 almost same things. That's one thing we're actively working on avoiding now. I think using more namespace keys. Like use the tools you have to impose some structure on your code base. And if you do these things right, of course, there's nobody helping you. You have to figure it out for yourself. But if you do that right, then I think navigating the code base also gets easier, because whenever you see that, here are some, whatever, I can't think of a single noun.
Podcasts.
Here are some pens. Then oh, it's pens. I know what pens are.
Yeah.
It's not those kinds of pens or those. It's just pens. So, like if you can build a strong vocabulary in your code base, that will also aid in navigating it.
Yeah, it does seem like sound like a little bit like domain-driven design. Like you need to make sure that you have the right entities and bounds and contexts. And fair enough.
You mentioned, Magnar, that you use the REPL. Is that something that is still, because it's funny how people evolve with the REPL. So I'm interested in your sort of stories, like when you're pairing or when you're working alone or whatever. Well, how do you feel like the REPL? Like, have you ditched it or are you still using it? What part does it play in your sort of like development process these days?
I would say the REPL as sort of this buffer where I'm looking at the REPL and typing into the REPL, that I haven't done for many years. Now the REPL is just, I'm using Cider in Emacs. I'm actually now we're using both LSP mode and Cider together, and it's beautiful. But Cider is sort of the purveyor of the REPL, and it's sort of the lifeblood of the editor. It's in the background. I don't look at it, but I can evaluate code everywhere. I can turn on my scope capture to get a example value wherever. I'm constantly typing code into a comment block at the end of every namespace, trying out stuff, just working with the code with very fast feedback all the time. And it feels like part of the editor more than a separate REPL for me at this point.
It's interesting. What about yourself, Christian? Is it very similar, or do you have a different sort of take?
No, very similar. Like you ask, have you left the REPL behind? I made big eyes because that's the REPL is like has become one of my favorite things about this language. It's like a long time ago, I was a huge fan of test-driven development, and when I discovered test-driven development, my excitement was about the same thing. Like I could write a small function and have it executed immediately in several different ways. It's like amazing. And then when I discovered the REPL, it's like, what do I want this tests for?
Like, let me just shoot in. When Christian said that he was a big fan of test-driven development, he actually wrote a book on it.
So yeah, I was about to ask, was it on JavaScript or was it only on Clojure?
No, it was a test-driven development with JavaScript.
Oh, pure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, nice. But now you only tell people just use Clojure.
Just forget it.
Move on.
No, I mean, we still have tests, of course, and occasionally we also work in a test-driven way. Sometimes that is okay, but for the most part, like the REPL took over that feedback loop for me.
But I imagine like the advice in the book still stands for the JavaScript folks because they don't have that same feedback loop, so it makes sense, you know?
Yeah, probably. But that's why I'm not so interested in JavaScript anymore.
But if you watch us pair program on Parents of the Dead, you can see us writing plenty of tests. So we haven't stopped doing that, and we're still writing the tests before we write the production code. But maybe in a lesser degree that it's driving the design,
right.
Sort of test first instead of TDD.
And now we also, it's like sometimes writing the tests first is not as easy, and then we still have the REPL to lean on. So you have like good options either way. And also, like if again from the screencast, you can see the way that we write the test. We're still using the REPL as we're typing the test out. Like, okay, I want to call this function. What does it do? Okay, so I want to then pick up this thing. What do I get then? So the REPL is like part of the experience all the time, even when we're writing tests before the code.
Maybe it's a good moment for you to pitch Parents of the Dead, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so. Because we keep saying as if you know it's. I mean, maybe everybody knows about it, but there might be one or two people who are living under, still doing JavaScript. You know, they probably need to know what this is.
Let me start by saying we have been trying to sort of preach Clojure without preaching it, because you can't sort of hit people over the head with you should be using this and that, and they also get tired of hearing, oh wow, this is so amazing, you have to try it. That doesn't work either. So how do we get more people into this amazing language? And sort of the place that I feel like, at least currently, I won't hold Magnar in 10 years to this, but I feel like this is my place now. Clojure and this community is my place. I want more people to discover what I have discovered, and I want to do it without without preaching. And the way that we are trying to do this here is just build something cool and let people be part of it. Come watch us code something. And we have done a couple of talks on conferences that are not Clojure conferences, where we just start using Clojure on typing out Clojure without even making a big deal of it. Look, let's build something. Let's type the parents in the wrong place. Who cares? So Parents of the Dead is sort of the latest chapter in that story, where we're building a game from scratch the entire screencast starts in episode 0, where we do mkdir and create an empty depth file. And you can watch this struggle all the way to a finished game. At least it's not finished yet, but we have, I think, 26 episodes so far.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And also,
it's on YouTube,
I can guarantee that it will be finished because this season is like we already did this in Norwegian.
Yeah.
And we finished the game. Then we figure out, wow, that's not a lot of audience. Should we have done this in English?
Okay.
And,
That's true.
You're like, well, we have already reached all the 4 Norwegians who are into Clojure.
Yeah.
Or not into
2
Clojure,
others.
maybe.
Yeah.
2 others. Nice.
And like I also just because we did I don't remember, was it part of the screencast or not? We did like a Parents of the Dead live session at the conference last year, and then we had some colleagues come and so they it was the last talk of the day, I think, or next to last or something. So they had started serving beer, so people came in with beers, and then a colleague of us handed out like small bags of candy to everyone who came in the room. So it's like pair programming, and we're making actual things that work, but it's done in a light tone, and it's supposed to be like mildly entertaining somehow.
Nice.
And let me pitch one more thing about Parents of the Dead.
Yes.
Which is topical on top of it. The server client architecture in Parents of the Dead is hilariously cool. It's not something that you can use for very many things, but it is sort of an idea boiled down to its very essence. And I would watch that screencast just for that architecture.
Nice.
It's of course based on data.
Yes. So that's the teaser.
No spoiler alerts.
That's the teaser. The teaser is come and see the data-driven architecture. Yeah.
I think the client has one file with components, and then it has about, I don't know, 20 lines of code.
Yeah,
something like that.
20 or 30 lines of code. No, that's it.
And it's a fully like interactive client-driven web game. So it's pretty cool.
Sweet. I'll make sure that I'll put the links in the notes. Just one more question regarding your Clojure projects and the consulting work that you've been doing. And so obviously you both are well versed in Clojure, and you know what you're doing, and you design the applications. And what happens when you hand it over to other mortals? What is going to happen to the code base, or how do you educate them, or how do you see the maintainability and the longevity given all the given a few problems that we discussed so far?
So far, I think we have left behind Clojure teams with some. The common story almost is, wow, I can work with Clojure there, and then they come and they work with Clojure there, and we leave.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Pretty much, except for maybe one place where no one wanted to maintain it, and that's still running. It's just the same old thing that's going strong because there's no breaking. There's no breaking changes, so it just keeps running.
Yeah,
and but it should also mention that we're not actually consultants anymore.
Yeah,
we just a month and a half ago, we both took a job in the Norwegian government. So we now work there in the what's it called? Norwegian Food Safety Authorities.
Yeah,
where we're hoping to build something of a what you call it? Something of a
sort of a Clojure group, or yeah.
Oh, so you're gonna expand a
beachhead,
the Clojure.
Yeah, well, they have so they have like really understood product teams and oh my god, what's it called when the team can do what it wants?
Autonomy.
Autonomous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Except talking about what it is called.
autonomous teams, and they have like free choice of technology.
Choose technology. Nice.
So we said like, okay, so if we come here, we'll be doing Clojure. Is that's still cool? And they said, yeah, that's cool. And then we said, okay, we're coming. And this is, and so now we're building our stuff this way. Other people are interested, and we're hoping that over time, we can spread the joy, get other teams interested, and ideally, like create more jobs for other people who want to work with Clojure to come and join us.
Yeah.
So you'll do more slurping than barfing.
That's right. and also hoping to basically not leave our projects behind. Like we want to stay with our projects and work on them long time.
Yeah. Are there any specific? Are there any other projects that you want to highlight or people should know about, their OSS or some other things that you're working on?
We have so many open source projects.
They should go and check your GitHub profile.
I think the most important open source project that the two of us have made, and Christian mainly, is a Hiccup, not Hiccup, DumDum, which is I think that's sort of the way to do data-driven frontends with Clojure script. Hiccup is DumDum is very, very good, especially now that it has support for the data events. It's excellent.
Super cool. Yeah,
I'll mention. Let me just mention one more thing then.
Yes,
because I also have a project called Portfolio.
Yeah.
Which was recently funded by Clojurists Together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I'm very grateful for, and so that's cool. You can check that out. That's it's like dev cards or Storybook or whatever.
Yeah.
Except it has more features, basically. Like we've been using dev cards since forever. It's like a great idea. And then I discovered that the JavaScript community had taken this idea and ran with it and created Storybook. It's like, what the fuck? They can't have.
We are not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they can't have better tools than we do. And then I tried like to be a good citizen and use it from like just use Storybook.
Yeah.
And to do that from Clojure script was after having written all the configuration files, I immediately realized that I'm not going to have the patience for this stuff.
Nice.
And then so I created my own thing. Yeah.
Super. And what state is it right now? Is it beta or is it already being used and people can start using it?
Yeah, it's very fit for use.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's basically it does pretty much all the things that I wanted it to do. But some work is happening on it. But the main effort, from my side at least, I think is done.
So is the idea just to sort of, because mine is in Storybook basically is you write the kind of views and the pages and essentially all the flow goes into the Storybook, and then you plug in like the Clojure script components afterwards. So how are you kind of like separating those two things yourself in your tool, or aren't you?
Basically it's just a tool for you to render examples of your UI components.
Oh, okay.
That's it. You take your components and you feed them with different data sets, and you give the examples names. And then the tool displays them for you, and it provides you with some tooling to look at, basically. So you can change the viewport size to see how it works on mobile versus desktop. You can run split views and check it with light background, dark background. Yeah.
So if you're like working with a designer, that's the sort of thing that you would use.
Yeah. And we even use it like it's a Clojure script app that runs in your browser, but we use it also for our statically rendered Clojure backends. Then we just create functions that return Hiccup and put them in CLJC files, and then we use Portfolio to work on the components, and then we run them from the backend to render HTML strings, basically.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow, we're almost. I think we're a little bit over time, but that's not a problem. I hope. And And big thank you for joining us all the way from Norway.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and I know there is a super vibrant community in Norway, especially for Clojure, and Eric has been doing some Clojure meetups there, and I should thank him for asking me to ask you to know more about this stuff, and I was very impressed by especially the humility and people who are so fucking smart, and although it's a tiny country, and then you're doing tiny as in number of people, obviously, not in size.
It is tiny, yeah.
Yeah,
it's tiny but long. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's amazing to see, and Magnar, obviously, thanks a lot for all the Emacs stuff, and I've been a fan forever, from the Emacs rock stuff and all the packages that you've been putting out. And I'm not an E-Lisp hacker on any sense of the word, but I'm copy pasting shit from people like you has been amazing for me. So
nice to hear.
It's been amazing for me as well.
Are you just admitting, Vijay, that you're an E-Lisp script kiddie?
Yeah. I can say I'm just a kiddie there.
Okay.
I'm not a pro or anything. I mean, there are vj.el in my thingy with a bunch of def advice, def hooks, and all that crap. But as you know, everybody's Emacs looks like going into somebody else's home and then somebody else's bathroom. And
you should check out like I mentioned earlier, we when we started a new job, we decided that it's time to take some care with our Emacs config, so we rebooted it, and it's on Magnar's GitHub, and it's turned out really nice. Actually, we used some newer features in Emacs, and you can actually read it, and it's at least still at this point, 1 month in, is still quite tidy and nice. So you can check it out.
I think one of the beautiful things that I noticed with all these Emacs, if I can call them distributions, is that I can just pick the parts. This is how they are doing it. This is super awesome. This is how I want. The whole use package thing has been done in a different way here, so I can just copy paste it here. It's much nicer, and I don't need to wholesale switch to the whole thing. But it makes it very easy to learn from all the Emacs gurus like you. So
you're building your own lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot, Magnar, and thanks a lot, Christian, for joining us. And it's been fun. I'm sorry I missed you guys when you were in when I was in Norway. Yeah. But I was very disappointed that a celebrity like me appearing in Norway, and then you decide not to be in the country. I feel insulted now, and that you're enjoying your life when I'm in Norway. No, that's not right.
You'll have to come back, and then we'll join you for lunch.
Certainly. I'd love to come back. And again, thanks a lot for Eric, and especially I want to mention Frederick. I think there is this young chap who works with Eric, and it's one of the guys. And then he met me, and then he was like, "Oh, this is amazing! I've been listening to your podcast when I was studying in London, and there is still younger generation listening to this. So, Frederick, if you are still listening, I apologize for this shit." but he's working in Clojure with Eric, and it's been an amazing community, and I love the way that you're bringing Clojure via documentation, and then even more stuff, and then letting people know that there are better ways to do things, and so it's an inspiration, and I hope you're gonna make the entire Norwegian food even safer with with Clojure.
Safer and more functional.
Exactly. Yeah. Sweet. That's it from us. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of defn. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page, and you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojure Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at defn podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.